Have you heard the Andromeda story in Greek mythology? Let's bring this story to life and focus on how that Andromeda story is an allegory that represents the soul's journey and ties in with esoteric anatomy. What that means is these figures and their actions mimic anatomical processes within our body. As the story goes, Andromeda is a princess. She is the daughter of King Cepheus and Queen Cassiopeia of Ethiopia. Andromeda's mother, Cassiopeia, boasts of Andromeda's beauty, claiming her the most beautiful of all the lands, and more so than the Nereids, which are the sea nymphs of Poseidon. And this angers Poseidon, which is the god of the sea. It causes him to send the sea monster known as Cetus to ravage their kingdom in punishment. Now, in order to save the kingdom and land, Cassiopeia and Cepheus are ordered to sacrifice their daughter to the sea monster, so she was chained to a rock by the sea to await her doom. However, Perseus, a demigod that is half human, half god, comes to the rescue and the aid of Andromeda. He shows up just after slaying Medusa and taking her head. Now, as we all know, Medusa will turn you into stone through a gaze. Perseus used her head to turn the sea monster to stone and then rescued Andromeda and ran away with her to marry her. How cute. Later in the story, Andromeda ends up being immortalized in the stars as a constellation. So now that we know the story, how does this pertain to us, the human? As within, so without, every story has a deeper meaning, and all mythology can be traced back to an anatomical process in a cosmic context. Now, all spiritual truths can. However, keep in mind, as we peel back the layers of truth in any topic, there are always multiple layers. This is just one interpretation, starting off with Andromeda herself. She represents the soul itself, the higher consciousness in human form. The chain into the rock represents the pineal gland restraint within the brain. This is the higher consciousness that is chained to the realm of the ego and the material world. Earth is the workshop of the infinite, where the soul refines itself and eventually unchains its own consciousness that it is, the as without from within. The rock symbolizes you tethered to the lower attributes, keeping the higher consciousness from awakening. Now, Cassiopeia is likened to the false self, full of vanity and a boastful nature. She is representing the left hemisphere of the brain here, which is the logical, structural, and often prideful nature that distances itself from the spiritual or higher truths. Poseidon is the god of the sea. What is the sea? The subconscious emotional states. You can't even say emotion without ocean. This is why Poseidon seems so volatile. He is ruler of deeply rooted emotional states which can be out of control. That sea monster is the representative. The deep emotional waters of the subconscious mind are hidden, and it's where fear resides. So unintegrated shadows or unresolved traumas will awaken the sea monster to come and torment the conscious mind. Now, each of us has at some point had emotions surface that overwhelm us, and this allegory is what's going on. I mean, think of all the scary things that we have in our own physical deep oceans. It works the same for our inner worlds. Now, even in the stars, the constellation of Cetus can be found near Pisces and Aquarius, both of which tie in with the water and which unchecked fears and emotions reside. It's all connected. When Perseus shows up as the hero, he unchains Andromeda, the soul from the rock. In this context, Perseus and Neo from the Matrix have a lot in common, as Perseus comes to the rescue from within the neocortex within the mind. He is the higher mind aspects, exactly like Neo. Different versions of the same story, but the neocortex is the executive for higher functioning faculties of the mind. Perseus is the higher mind releasing the soul from the beliefs and emotions that have surfaced from the depths. Now, prior to unchaining Andromeda from the rock, he slays Medusa. Medusa represents in many ways the limbic system of the mind, particularly the amygdala, which deals with fear and emotion. Now, think of the turning to stone aspects. If you look at her, you turn to stone. Why? Because this means you have confronted fears and emotions that are unchecked, and therefore you're frozen or chained to the rock and ultimately unable to function. Now, an interesting fact on her snake heads: snakes represent wisdom, as we know, and in order to stop the fear and emotions, the one that turns the stone must be the fear and emotions themselves. ultimately freeing the soul. This is why Perseus, the higher mind, turns the wisdom towards the sea monster. Now, once the soul is liberated, the strings of emotion from the limbic system are released and the awakening of the pineal or third eye chakra center occurs, and the path to higher consciousness and cosmic consciousness ensues. The immortalization of Andromeda as a constellation in the stars is tied to the same liberation that the universal mind achieves through you. Immortality, ascension, the freeing of the soul, it's all the same story. Now, this entire story represents the soul's journey to spiritual awakening and self-realization. As above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul, and until next time in the eternal now, peace profound.